Welcome to another episode of the Game Changers podcast, where we shine the spotlight of these sometimes unsung heroes of the games industry, the people behind making those great games that we all love so dearly. And today I have another amazing guest, Vicente, who agreed to be on the podcast, and we will look into his journey in the industry and who he is as a person. So without further ado, Vicente, over to you, and maybe you can introduce yourself to begin with.
Thank you, Lars. Thanks for inviting me, and I'm sure it'll be a good podcast. I wrote some notes down. Let me read them. So my name is Vicente Ferrari. I'm originally from Chile, but I'm living in Hamburg right now. And I'm a games programmer. That's what I do for a living. Been doing for some years. Specifically, like low-level systems engineering type guy. But I haven't been around that long, so the story's not gonna take that long, I guess.
I mean, I got two quick follow-up questions, if I may. First of all, what brought you from Chile to Europe? Is there a specific story to it? Was it for the job, or in general you wanted to come here?
Well, I always wanted to learn German.
How come? Why German?
I don't know. I just like languages, natural languages as well. And for a long time, I wanted to learn German, and that was very good. That was very successful. But I moved to Vienna at the beginning when a year and a half ago. I moved to do a master's degree in computer science, in like theoretical computer science, but I didn't finish it for various reasons. That's what brought me to Europe.
Learning German and you went to Austria is something that a lot of people will feel like, if you want to learn proper German, sorry for to all the Austrian listeners. I mean,
so
you got
to Hamburg. Yeah. So I chose Vienna because they had a cool program at the technical university in Vienna that most other universities don't have, like computability theory and like logic research. It's not that popular nowadays. So in Vienna, it's one of the few like remaining beacons of that research. So that's why I moved there. But they do speak German, and
I know. I was just kidding before. It's like
as opposed to popular belief,
sometimes make fun of each other for that.
As opposed to popular belief, they do speak German. It's a weird German. It's true.
So I wanted to ask you also about the tech side of things. You mentioned you're a low-level systems engineer, so maybe you can explain that a little bit for like the non-tech people listening to the podcast, just to shine some light onto what exactly it roughly is that you do when working on a game or working on any software for that matter.
So it used to be the case like 30 years ago that programmers were just programmers and everyone did everything. But as the company, the industry grew and the companies grew and the money grew and the number of people at each company grew and the size of the projects grew, people felt the need to specialize, which is it's fine, like that. It's necessary sometimes, right? So usually nowadays you have gameplay programmers. I have tools programmers. Gameplay programmers program the logic that makes the gameplay happen in a very general sense.
Yeah.
Tools programmers program tools to help artists and gameplay programmers do the job. And low-level systems kind of programming is like the people making the engine, basically.
Yeah.
Or systems that will allow gameplay programmers to do their job.
So you're pretty much the enabler for the others in what you do.
In a lot of cases, yes, yeah. So after I finished my bachelor's computer science, my first job was at System Era Softworks in Seattle, and we made a game called Astroneer, and that was a very cool experience. And I did a bunch of different, and not that many, but different things in the course of not that long, a year and a half or so. One of them was like to debug rendering, because Unreal has some debug rendering facilities, but they're really bad and slow, and no one uses them. So if you're making gameplay systems, you want to debug them, you want to visualize what's going on. If you're making fluid simulations for your game, you want to like draw little arrows that tell you where the fluids are going,
Right.
things like that. And if you want to draw 100,000 arrows, the Unreal debug rendering was horrible, so we made a new one, and that was very good. I also worked with the audio engineer, audio designer, to design a middle layer that went between the engine and the audio tool. I think it was FMod, and that was fun.
All right,
as well.
let's move a bit from the tech side to to you as a person. And there's one question I like to ask, which is, if you had the chance to have like a 1 hour conversation with a video game character of your choice from the past or present or whatever you choose, who would the character be and what would you ask it?
I really have no idea. I thought about this question a few times over the course of a few days, and I really couldn't come up with anyone. But I think it's for a good reason. I think it's because of like a fundamental limitation, or not a limitation, but like a fundamental characteristic of games as a medium. So if you compare the games to like books or movies, they're different. So when you ask a person about like their favorite character in a movie or in a book, or in all movies or in all books, they can probably come up with something. But the thing is that in books and movies, the stories are linear.
Mm.
There's just one story. It's the thing that the author wrote, right? And it's like an idea they had in their heads, or maybe multiple ideas that they had in their head, and they wrote it down, and they gave it to you, and then you read it, and you accepted that, and you have to. But it's only one thing. In games, though, it's like completely different, because you're put in a world, and you don't experience the world at the pace of the author. You experience the world at your own pace. If it's an actual game,
Right.
Like there's games that are very linear, but they could have been a movie, right? But if it's a game, then you experience the world at your own pace, and that means that the stories, if you want to communicate a story, in my opinion, games are not the best medium for communicating stories, just because one of the things that you want to do in games is make blank slates main characters, so that the people can insert themselves in the world. It's the main character that they're controlling. That's something that a lot of games do, and that makes for boring characters that are not very deep.
Some of the narrative designers out there would probably say that they love telling stories through the characters they've designed. So I think it's a bit of a interesting view on this, obviously, because I mean, it's clear you come from a kind of a viewpoint of games should provide the playground and kind of the toy box for people to be themselves in there. And there's a lot of those games out there, and a lot of players that truly enjoy this. I would argue there's probably also quite a few that enjoy the narrative experience that is being designed, that is then closer to a book or a movie you enjoy. So I guess it also comes a bit with like what type of player you are and what you enjoy. But your answer is perfectly valid. Don't get me wrong. It's just interesting to hear the perspective.
Yeah, you can do stories. Like there's a million story games based about telling a story, but I think they're not good. Mostly.
All right, that's a bold statement. It's interesting. Let's
because
see what
games are good. The games are very good at communicating other things other than stories, like more abstract things, like systems and like logic,
right.
and more complex ideas. That if you could put them in a book in writing, you would write it.
Yeah.
So right.
Games are a powerful medium that to be able to do that.
Like if I could tell you what a game is about, I would tell you. I would write it down and tell you. Yeah. But you can't, because it's what it's about. It's a higher level of like human experience.
Right. Since
So
we
they're
since we
good. They're
already
very good at communicating just other types of things. Like if I worked on a game, if I made my own game, it would not be based on. It would not be a story
Mhm.
game. But
I
that's
think
just my opinion.
that's clear by now that
Yeah.
you would provide like the system for players to pretty much create their own experience, their own stories. Since we already talked about no
No, I
no
mean yes, like those are fine. Like I like management games and stuff like that. The game I'm working on right now is kind of like that. But I'm a big fan of The Witness. It's a game
Mhm.
made by Jonathan Blow, and there's no story in that game. But there's also it's not a sandbox. It's a puzzle game. It's a game
Mhm.
about puzzles. And the thing that the guy is communicating to you is not a story. It's not letting you do whatever you want. Like you have to beat the game. It's communicating you a bunch of abstract ideas about how puzzles have to be solved. And there's also like some philosophical things that you put in there so that you discover the game and
Mhm.
you learn something from it, you become better from it, right? It's like a very artistic sort of thing. But the ideas that he's communicating to you are not a story, it's not a sandbox, it's something else. He's communicating to you something deep human things, like solving puzzles and like following rules, and it's abstract graph theory and stuff, and I don't know, it's different. I don't know.
You got me curious. I might want to check this out. Maybe we can even
It's a good
link it
game.
in the description there, so people can check it out as well.
It's a good game. I think it's a good game.
Speaking of good games, since we're already talking about games and what kind of games you enjoy playing or also making, if there's the game in history that you enjoyed a lot, which one would it be? Or not only enjoyed, but which game would you wish you had worked on previously? Is there anything other than The Witness, or maybe it is The Witness? Is there anything else where you feel like I would have loved to contribute to that?
I'm not sure if I would have liked working on The Witness for various reasons. I mean, I think I would have because it's a good game, and I would like to have worked on good games, on any good game, right? Or any good game I found good. Yeah, I would have liked to work on Doom, for example, like with John Carmack. That would have been an experience, right?
Mhm.
Just whenever you're like in the forefront of a field or something, that's always exciting. And I think he's a cool guy.
Have you met him
Um,
before?
no, but I listen to some of his podcasts and stuff.
Okay.
I've no, I could have had the opportunity to move to America, but I decided not
Yeah, I've
to.
never met Carmack myself. I talked with John Romero a couple times. Was also
Yeah,
interesting character. So I can imagine Carmack would be interesting to to talk to.
yeah, for sure. And like he's worked on so many different things. Like now he's on AI. He's worked on rockets and 3D graphics and VR or whatever. It's cool. Cool guy.
So
But
so let's.
I have a couple of more answers.
Oh yeah, okay, go for it.
So when I was a child, I liked playing RuneScape.
Good one.
Um,
Yeah.
it was a good MMO. I liked it. And when I was a child, I always wanted to work for Jagex so that I could have like all the top tier items without having to work for them, right? Because if you're working there, you're like a mod or whatever. You just go around with all your cool high tier
If you still want to work for Jagex, by the way, guys, you should listen here. So-
items. And I also thought about like I would have liked working on some sort of for other aspects. I would have liked working on a From Software game like Dark Souls 3 or something like that, just because
Mhm.
they have a very holistic vision of like music, graphics, story, combat, and it all ends up in a very a good quality package. And I think
Mhm.
they and like working with artists, I always like working with artists. So that's some three different reasons why I would have liked to work on three different games.
All right. I mean, some really good games that you have as a reference there. I always find it fascinating to talk to people about what inspired them. Maybe sometimes even to inspire them ultimately to get into games. So speaking about getting into games and working in the industry, and while your journey hasn't been like extremely long so far, but I can see you're passionate about making games and building those systems. Did you have like one of those key moments in your gaming career so far where you said like, this moment reshaped how I think about games and how to approach them? Is there any such thing you can remember?
Yes. There's a guy he lives in Seattle. His name is Casey Muratori, and he's like an engineer.
Mm-hmm.
And he made a YouTube series called Handmake Hero. And it's a YouTube series about him making a game. It's like 1 hour a week or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember. And he builds a game from scratch with no dependencies, no engine, no libraries, nothing. He writes every single character of code that goes into the game. And it was a very good help in understanding how computers work, how programs get made at all, and how to be productive, which is very important. I think nowadays with the layers and layers of software and stacks upon stacks, it's so hard to get anything done and be productive. And the quality of software is, in my opinion, also not going up, going down. But this is for another podcast. So that was a really like sort of like I always liked low level programming but when I started watching that and getting educated by that sort of it's the Handmade Hero series on YouTube. It's like a handmade network community on Discord, and they make good software, good quality software without many dependencies that perform well. So that was like a change in my sort of philosophy on how to make. Philosophy is too grandiose a word, but like my view on how to write
So do you
programs.
also now yourself enjoy kind of hand making
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
very
fits
performance
well
or
with the low level systems engineer type of guy. I
yeah.
think that comes with that.
No dependencies, very minimal dependencies, on dependencies that I can understand. So if I use Unreal, like no one understands, not one single person understands all of Unreal. Like it's a huge system. So I'm not in favor generally of using dependencies that you don't understand. So
True, and games get increasingly complex, so I guess
yeah,
it's even harder to understand all the dependencies in modern day games.
yeah. No, it's almost impossible.
Speaking of things getting more complex and more challenging sometimes, is there a challenge in the current games industry or in making games that you feel very strongly about? A challenge that gets you excited that you somehow want to solve yourself? Is there anything you could name there?
You mean like about the industry itself or games?
Yeah, about it could be both. I mean, either the industry itself, or like in making a game. I mean, they're oftentimes connected somehow. So, anything you can think of where you feel like this needs to be solved, and I would like to be a part of it.
So if it's about like the industry itself, I don't really know. I haven't thought about it that much. I've just
And
been like
make it about a game. That's
just
fine.
been an employee working, obeying the whims of the stakeholders, right?
True, a difficult time of year.
Um, and I'm more worried about games and the art of games than some like meta ideas on how to make them, or how to organize a company or something.
Right. Yeah.
But if it comes to games itself, yeah, I have some ideas about games I would like to make and stuff like that. I don't want to talk about it too much, but I have some game idea. It's not very groundbreaking or anything incredible. Like I don't want to oversell it, but I don't think it has been done before, and I think it's a
Mhm.
good design. So I don't know, but
Well, I mean,
uh,
it's fair enough. I mean, maybe we see something coming from you
maybe
in the not too
it
distant
maybe
future.
it receives the light of day at some.
Yeah, it's always the hope of every developer, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Whether one person or teams, that at some point it sees the light of day, and then ultimately people actually like it. That's the best thing that can happen. So seeing of or speaking of seeing the light of day and kind of your dreams going forward, that'd be something I'm curious about. Obviously you've been going through a difficult phase right now, and I'm wondering what are your dreams going forward when it comes to the industry? Or what are you looking for yourself? Do you want to rely on building something on your own, or if you're looking for something new, then what would it need to be? What's important to you when you, let's say, join a new company or do something on your own? What matters and what are your aspirations there?
Yeah. So since childhood, my goal has been making small to medium-sized games, very creative indie games, sort of. So like when I was growing up, I was very influenced by this sort of like indie game golden age, like
Mm-hmm.
2007 to like 2012, when AAA games were getting like too big, and indie games, like small games with small budgets, were able to like get into consoles, marketplaces, or Steam, and that meant like everything. Um, so I have a like romantic idea about this period, and I would like to make something along those lines. It's
Do you
obviously
think?
harder and
Do you think
harder.
it's? Do you think this period is over somehow? I mean, I have the feeling when I talk to people, some say like this is still going on. Indie games are strong, and they still feel very good about all of this. But or would you say like this is we're past this point and now different
I'm not
environment?
saying indie games are over, not at all, but it's like this period had like a very particular culture around it.
Hmm.
And a very like it was a very marked different. It's obviously different from how it is today. But I'm not saying indie games are over or something like that, but like this marked around 5, 6 year period, like it was different. But I don't think
How
indie
would you
games are
describe
over.
that culture during that time? You said like it feels different these days. Well, what was the cool thing about you during that time? And not about you, for you, about this situation. I mean, you mentioned that you really enjoyed this this period
Yeah,
where
because I
indie
grew
games
up,
were a
I
thing.
was I was an impressionable kid at that time, right? So I
Mhm.
watched like Indie Game the movie
Me too. Good one, by the way. Yeah.
when I was like, what year did it come out? I was 13 or something.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh yeah, this is what I want with my life, right? So it's more of I'm not yeah, it's more about that,
So it was more
I
like an
guess.
inspiration during the time for you to see others make those games and enjoying them that
Yeah,
led you to
it was
do that as well.
it was not like an industry thing. It was like a cultural thing. Like small indie games were making big waves, right?
Right.
And they could get as much media coverage as AAA games, for example.
And so they sometimes do these days. It's just very hard to predict. I guess that's
Yeah,
why a lot of people kind of shy away from taking the risk, which it ultimately is. I mean, I think you got to be very passionate about what you do there and to believe in it.
oh
And then
yeah,
some of them are super successful at some point, but a lot, unfortunately, don't see the light of day for their games. And then that's, I guess, a risk that's too big for some to take.
for sure. I mean, yeah, I don't think like AAA games should not exist or something. They obviously have their place. And when you are dealing with so much money, you have to be very responsible with your money.
Right.
Like if you're putting $400 million in a game, you have to think about like where the money comes from. Most of the time, it's like people's pension funds. So if you just burn that money, that's not good, right?
Yeah.
Um, so there's for sure like a space for AAA games, but it's just not the kind of game I want to make. I want to make like that's the thing about indie games, or one of the things about indie games. You have a low budget. That means you can take more risks with like crazy ideas, right? With alternative visual styles, with gameplay ideas that are experimental with whatever combination.
So,
Um,
so
you,
looking into the future, is that your main ambition to create something on your own, maybe together with a couple of people, or are you looking to, I don't know,
I
join an
mean, in the long
existing team
term,
working on something?
I would like to, yeah, have like my own game. And you also asked like how I can see this, how I can envision this coming
Yeah.
into reality. I don't know. Just working hard, I guess. Like sitting in front of my computer 12 hours a day and solving problems. And after a while, you solve enough small problems that you can ship it.
Well, I think there's definitely a lot of people out there that would love to collaborate with someone like you who's got the technical foundation there. Because personally, what I've seen over the past couple of years is when teams come together, small indie teams come together. Oftentimes, it's great to have like complementing skills, and
Yeah, yeah, of
oftentimes
course.
the engineers are the ones that are missing, to make things happen. And so I think there's still
Mm.
good opportunity out there, and I could say, Vincent, I wish you all the best for this. I think, you have incredible talent in making this happen. I hope that, today's podcast episode showed, a few of the different aspects that you care about a lot. I'm curious if we get some feedback on your comments on the narrative games that we talked about earlier. So I'm looking forward
Yeah. I mean,
to those.
it's a controversial opinion, but
Oh,
I
that's
have a
fine.
lot
I
I
love
have a
that.
lot of controversial opinions.
Yeah. No, that's good. I mean, in the end, we're here to feature people and to let their voices be heard. That's why the podcast is subtitled "Voices of the Games Industry," and I think it's important that we have these conversations. So,
Yeah,
maybe next time I invite a narrative designer or something, so we can have the counterbalance to that. But again, thank you so
totally.
much, Vicente, for agreeing to join on this episode.
Thanks
I
again
hope.
for inviting me.
Absolutely. I hope it was fun for you and also for the listeners out there. And stay tuned for more episodes like that. Thank you so much, Vicente. Have a great day.
Thanks, Lars. See ya.